Hi everyone and welcome to Tech Cloud Solution. And today we are diving into some of the most important AZ-104 exam questions to help you ace your certification on the first try. These questions are designed to simulate the actual exam experience and cover key topics like Azure identity, governance, compute, storage, and networking. Plus, I will walk you through the answers and explain the reasoning behind them so you can learn effectively. Let's tackle these questions step by step. Remember, it's not just about knowing the answers but understanding the why behind it. By the way, if you want to practice more questions, head over to our website's TechCloud Solution where you will find the full length practice test and detailed explanation. Question number 1. A team has enabled multi factor authentication for three users as shown below. Username, multi factor authentication status. So we have TexLab user 1, 2, 3. For user 1, it is disabled. For user 2, it is enforced, and user 3, enabled. A group has been created and all users have been added as a part of the group. You create a conditional access policy which enforces the use of multi-factor authentication for the group for all cloud-based application. Would TechLab user 2 be required to use multi-factor authentication when signing into Azure via the web browser? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. The different scenarios based on the user state is given in the Microsoft documentation. If the user state is an enforced state, then the user will need to use MFA for the login process. Question number 2. So for this question, the scenario is same and the question it says, would TechLab user 1 be required to use multi-factor authentication when signing into Azure via the web browser? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So if the user is in the disabled state, then the user will not be prompted for the MFA. Question number 3. A company has an Azure subscription that contains the following resource group. So we have TechLab Group A under East US and TechLab Group B under West US. The following resources have been deployed to the subscription. So it is given as name, resource type, and resource group. So for the network interface, we have TexLab NIC 1 under resource group A. Then we have public IP address TexLab IP1 under resource group A. We have TexLab network, that is virtual network, under resource group A. Then we have a storage account, that is TexLab store 1 under the resource group A. The network interface is attached to a virtual machine that is located in the TexLab network virtual network. Would you be able to move the storage account TexLab store 1 to the resource group TexLab group B? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. So since this is an isolated resource, so it can be moved to the resource group. Question number 4. Your company has an Azure subscription that contains a log analytics workspace named staging workspace. You have to get the error events from the table named event. Which of the following query would you run in the workspace? So in the options, the query is given under A, B, C, D. So for this question, the correct query is D, that is search in event error. Question number 5. A development team has just launched an Azure Kubernetes cluster. They have images placed in an Azure Container Registry. They want to deploy an application onto the cluster using an image from the Azure Container Registry. Which of the following command could be used to fulfill this requirement? And the options are A. Easy Kubernetes deploy, B. kubectl apply, C. Docker run, and D. Docker build. So the correct answer is kubectl apply. To deploy an application to the cluster, you have to use the kubectl apply command. Question number 6. A company has the following app service plans defined as part of their Azure subscription. Name, location, and operating systems are given. So we have TexLab Plan A under East US and the operating system is Linux. Then we have TexLab Plan B under East US and that is Windows operating system. And the last one is Plan C, location is UK South and it's under Windows. The company is planning on deploying the following Azure web app instances. So name, location and runtime stack are given. TexLab App 1 under East US and the runtime is .NET Core 3.1, and for the TexLab App 2 under East US location and runtime stack is ASP.NET v4.7. Which of the following app service plans can you use for TexLab App 2? And the options are A. TexLab Plan A only, B. TexLab Plan B only, C. For TexLab Plan A and TexLab Plan B only, and E. TexLab Plan A, TexLab Plan B, and TexLab Plan C. So the correct answer is B. TexLab Plan B only. So the web app and the app service plan needs to be located in the same region. You can deploy a .NET application on Windows OS only. Question number 7. So the scenario is same and the question it says which of the following app service plans can you use for TexLab App 1? And the options are A. TexLab Plan A only, B. TexLab Plan B only, and C. TexLab Plan A and TexLab Plan B only, and D. TexLab Plan B and TexLab Plan C only. So the correct answer is C. That is TexLab Plan A and TexLab Plan B only. So the reason is the web app and the app service plan needs to be located in the same region and you can deploy a .NET Core application on either a Windows OS or a Linux OS. Question number 8. A company is planning on deploying two Azure Kubernetes cluster. Each cluster has different requirements as given below. Cluster A. Here you have to ensure that the nodes get an IP addresses from the Azure Virtual Network subnet and the pods receive an IP address from a logically different address space. Cluster B. Here you have to ensure that every pod gets an IP address from the subnet and can be accessed directly. Which of the following needs to be used to fulfill the requirement for cluster B? And the options are A. Service endpoint, B. KubeNet, C. Azure Container Network Interface, and D. Network Security Group. So for the cluster B, the requirement is that every pod gets an IP address from the subnet and can be accessed directly. So the correct answer is C. So the AKS cluster can use the Azure Container Networking Interface. Question number 9. So this is also the scenario is same, but the question is says which of the following needs to be used to fulfill the requirement for cluster A. And cluster A, it says that you have to ensure that the nodes get an IP addresses from the Azure Virtual Network subnet and the pods receives an IP address from a logically different address space. The options are A. Service endpoint, B. KubeNet, C. Azure Container Network Interface, and D. Network Security Group. So the correct answer is KubeNet. Now, if you come across the question where it has images, you can click the image to zoom out. Your company has an Azure storage account named TexLab Store 8080 that has the following properties. The company wants to change the replication type of the storage account from read access geo redundant storage to zone redundant storage by requesting Azure support for a live migration. Which of the following must be carried out first to fulfill this requirement? The options are A. Ensure to change the performance of the storage account. B. Ensure to change the access tier of the storage account. C. Ensure to change the account kind of the storage account. And D. Ensure to change the replication technique of the storage account. So the correct answer is D. So in the Microsoft documentation, it clearly states that the replication type of the storage account can be changed to zone redundant storage only if the current replication technique is either LRS or GRS. Question number 11. Your company has the following users defined as part of their Microsoft Intra ID tenant. The tenant is also synced with an on-premise Active Directory using Microsoft Intra ID Connect. So given as name, type and source. So we have TexLab user 1 that is member and Microsoft Intra ID. Then we have TexLab user 2. It is also a member under Windows Server Active Directory. Then we have TexLab user 3 that is guest Microsoft account and TexLab user 4 member under Windows Server Active Directory. The users have the following attributes: name, office, phone, mobile phone. So for every users the information is given like TexLab user 1 office phone is given, mobile phone is given for 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, you have to ensure multi factor authentication is enabled for all users. You decide to create a new user account for TexLab User 3 in Microsoft Intra ID. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. Since MFA can't be enabled for external user accounts, if you try this out and invite an external users and then you go to the MFA settings page, you will not be able to select the users to enable MFA. Question number 12. The scenario is same and the question it says you have to ensure multi-factor authentication is enabled for all users. You decide to add an office phone number for TexLab user 2. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options is true and false. The correct answer is false. So here the issue is that you can't enable multi-factor authentication for external user. There is no dependency as such on the phone numbers. If you try this out and invite an external user and then you go to the MFA settings page, you will not be able to select the users to enable MFA. Question number 13. The scenario is same and the question is you have to ensure multi-factor authentication is enabled for all users. You decide to add a mobile phone number for TexLab user 2 and TexLab user 4. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options is true and false. So the correct answer is false. So here the issue is that you can't enable multi-factor authentication for external users. Question number 14. A company has the following Azure file shares defined in their Azure subscription. Name, storage account and location is given. We have TexLab share 1 and storage account TexLab storage 1 under West US. Then we have TexLab share 2 under TexLab storage 1 under West US. The company also has the following on-premise servers, name and folders. TexLab server 1 and the folders is given under D TexLab 1 and E drive TexLab 2. Then we have TexLab server 2 and the folder location is D drive under data. The company then carries out the following task. Create a new storage sync service named TexLab Sync. Created a new Azure file sync group named TexLab Group. TexLab Share 1 has been added as a cloud endpoint in TexLab Group. The servers TexLab Server 1 and TexLab Server 2 are registered as servers with the sync service. TexLab Server 1 along with the path D drive slash TexLab 1 is added as a server endpoint in TexLab group. Can you now add TexLab Server 1 along with the path E drive slash TexLab 2 as the server endpoint in TexLab group? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. Once you add a server as a server endpoint with a particular file path, you can't add the server as another endpoint with another path. Question number 15. The scenario is same and the question it has, can you now add TexLab server 2 along with the path D drive slash data as the server endpoint in TexLab group? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. Since TexLab Server 2 has not been added as a server endpoint, you can go ahead and add it as the server endpoint. Question number 16. The scenario is same. The question it has, can you now add TexLab Share 2 as the cloud endpoint in TexLab group? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So once you add a cloud endpoint to a sync group, you can't add any other shares as the cloud endpoint. Question number 17. A company has the following resources defined as part of their Azure subscription. So we have name, type, location and resource group. TechCert Labs RG1, that is resource group under East US, and we have RG2 resource group under West US. Then we have TechCert Lab Vault, that is recovery service vault under West Europe, and it is under resource group 1. Then we have storage account. So we have three storage account, that is 2070, 2080 and 2090. So 2070 is under East US and under resource group 2, whereas 2080 is under West US and for the resource group 1. And then we have 2090 in location West Europe and under resource group 2. Then we have three log analytics workspace, that is 1, 2, 3. So one log analytics workspace 1 is under East US and under resource group 1. Then log analytics 2 is under West US and under resource group 2. Then the last log analytics workspace 3 is under West Europe and under resource group 1. The company is planning on configuring the diagnostic settings for the recovery services vault for storage of the Azure backup reports. Which of the following can be used from the log analytics workspace to store the backup reports? And the options are A. TexLab Analytics 1 only, B. TexLab Analytics 2 only, C. TexLab Analytics 3 only, or D, that is TexLab Analytics 1, 2 and 3. So the correct answer is D. So the log analytics workspace can be in any region and does not need to be in the same region as the recovery service vault. Now question number 18, the scenario is same and the question it says the company is planning on configuring the diagnostic settings for the recovery service vault for storage of the Azure backup reports. Which of the following can be used from the storage accounts to store the backup reports? And the options are A. TexLab Store 2070 only, B. 2080 only, C. 2090 only, or D. 2070, 2080 and 2090 only. So the correct answer is C. So the storage account must be in the same region as the recovery service vault for the storage of the reports. Question number 19. Your company has the following resources defined as part of their Azure subscription: 100 Azure virtual machines, 10 Azure SQL databases, and 50 Azure file share. You need to create a daily backup of all resources by using Azure Backup. What is the minimum number of backup policies you have to create for this requirement? And the options are A 1, B 2, C 3, D 100. So the correct answer is 2. We can have one policy for the Azure virtual machines and one for Azure file share. The Azure SQL database have a separate backup mechanism via automated backups. Question number 20. A company has the following resources defined as part of the Azure subscription. Name and type is given. TexLab container, that is Blob container. Then we have TexLab share, it is Azure file share. Then TexLab DB SQL database and TexLab table, that is Azure table. The company is planning on using the Azure import or export service. From which of the following can you export the data from using the service? And the options are A. TexLab container, B. TexLab share, C. TexLab DB, and D. TexLab table. So the correct answer is A. TexLab container. The Azure import or export service can be used to export data from Azure Blob storage. Question number 21. A company currently has the following resources defined as part of their subscription: name and type and location. TechCert Lab Dash Network, that is virtual networks under East US. TechCert Lab Dash IP, it is public IP address under West Europe. And TechCert Lab Route, that is route table under North Europe. The company wants to create a network interface named TexLab interface. In which of the following reason or reasons can you go ahead and create the new network interface? And the options are A, in East US and West Europe only, B. In West Europe only, C. In East US, West Europe and North Europe, and D. In East US only. So the correct answer is D. When you create a virtual network, an important aspect is to ensure you set the virtual network for the network interface. Question number 22. A company has the following virtual machines defined as part of their subscription. Name, operating system, connect to. So TexLab VM1, that is Windows Server 2019, and it's connect to subnet A. TexLab VM2, Windows Server 2019, and it's connect to subnet B. Public IP addresses are assigned to the virtual machines. At the operating system level, incoming remote desktop connections have been allowed on the operating system level. Both of the subnets are in the same virtual network. A network security group named TexLab NSG1 has been assigned to subnet A. This network security group only has the default rules. A network security group named TexLab NSG2 has been assigned to the network interface of TexLab VM2. This network security group has an additional rule with the following details. So priority is 100, name TexLab rule, port 3389, protocol TCP, source any, destination any, and action is allowed. Is it possible to remote desktop into TexLab VM2 from the internet? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. Since there is a rule which specifically allows remote desktop connection from any source, connections are possible into TexLab VM2. Question number 23. The scenario is same and the question it says, is it possible to remote desktop into TexLab VM1 from the internet? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So basically for the TexLab VM1, it is attached to subnet 1, and subnet 1 is attached to network security group, that is TexLab NSG1, which has the default rules. Now if you look at an example of the default network security rules, only traffic inbound within the virtual network and traffic from the load balancer is allowed. Otherwise, all other traffic is denied. Hence, here also the traffic will be denied. Question number 24, and it has the images. You can click on the image. So we have TexLab network 1 and 2, and the IP addresses is given as 10.10.10.0/24, and for the network 2 the IP address is 172.16.0.0/16. Then the virtual networks have the following subnets. Then we have subnet 1121 and 22. Address space is given and the location is given under network 1, network 2 and network 2. Then we have TexLab dash production has the following virtual network. TexLab network, and the address space is given as 10.10.128.0/617 under Canada Central. Then this network contains the following subnets. We have TexLab subnet A1 and the address space is given. Then we have TexLab subnet A2 and the address subnet is given. Now the question it has, a company currently has two Azure subscription, TexLab dash staging and TexLab dash production. TexLab dash staging has the following virtual networks. Can you establish a peering connection between TexLab network 1 and TexLab network A? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. Since the address space for the virtual networks don't overlap, you can establish a peering connection between both virtual networks. Question number 26. The scenario is same and the question it says, Can you establish a site-to-site VPN connection between TexLab Network 1 and TexLab Network 2? The options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. The virtual network TexLab Network 1 does not have sufficient address space to create a gateway subnet, and to establish a site-to-site VPN connection, you need to have a gateway subnet in place. Question number 27. A company has an Azure subscriptions and an Azure tenant named TexLabs.onmicrosoft.com. The following users are defined in the tenant: name, role, and scope. So TexLab user 1, it is global administrator under Microsoft Intra ID. Then we have TexLab user 2, global administrator Microsoft Intra ID. Then we have TexLab user 3, the role is user administrator under Microsoft Intra ID. Then TexLab user 4, owner under Azure subscription. The user TexLab user 1 now goes ahead and creates a new directory named staging.texlabs.onmicrosoft.com. New users now need to be created in the new tenants. The company asks TexLab user 3 to create the user accounts. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So the users would only be the user administrator for the current directory. In order to add users to the new directory, the main users needs to be given the required role in the new directory. Question number 28. The scenario is same. The question it says the company asks TexLab users to create the user's account. Would this fulfill the requirement? The correct answer is false. So the explanation is same, as the users would only be the global administrator for the current directory. In order to add users to the new directory, the main users need to be given the required role in a new directory. Question number 29. This is also the same scenario, and the question it says the company asks TexLab user 1 to create the user account. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. So since this is the user has the global administrator role and has created the new directory, the users would have the required permission to create new users in the directory. Question number 30. A company has an Azure subscription that contains the following resource groups. So name, and log type is given. Text labs dash rg1, log name is none and log type is none. Then we have text labs dash rj2, log name is text lab log 1 and it has delete log. Now the resource group text labs dash rg1 contains the following resources: name, type, log name, and log type is given. We have TexLab store 2090, that is storage account, and the log name is TexLab 2, and delete, the log type is delete. Then we have TexLab network, that is virtual network, and the log name is TexLab log 3, and it has read only log type. Then we have TexLab IP, public IP address, no log name and no log type. The question it has: would you be able to move the resource TexLab IP from the resource group TexLabs rg1 to TexLabs rg2? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. So the explanation is as: to determine whether you can move the resource TexLab IP from the resource group TexLabs RG1 to RG2, we need to analyze the resource logs applied to both resource groups and the specific resource. Now for the resource groups, it contains three resources. That is storage account, TexLab Store 2090. It has a delete log. Then we have TexLab network has a read only log, and TexLab IP no log. For the resource group TexLab-RJ2, it has a delete log. Now, moving resources in Azure. So in Azure, when moving resources between resource groups, the following rules apply regarding logs. If the destination resource group has a delete log, it prevents any resources from being deleted from that group. However, it does not prevent moving resources into it. If the source resource group has a read only log on any of its resources, that might restrict modification. But since TextLab IP has no logs, it can be moved. The absence of logs on the resource itself means there are no restrictions on modifying or moving the resources. Hence, you would be able to move the resource TextLab IP from the resource group TextLabs-RG1 to RG2. Question number 31. The scenario is same and the question it has, would you be able to move the resource TextLab network from the resource group TextLabs-RG1 to -RG2? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So the explanation is same as given in the previous question. So moving to the next question. Question number 32. A company current has a set of Azure virtual machines. They want to ensure that their IT administrative team is alerted if any of the virtual machines are shut down. They decide to create alerts in the service health service. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So the service health service is used to inform users on the health of all Azure based services. Question number 33. A company current has a set of Azure virtual machines. They want to ensure that their IT administrative team is alerted if any of the virtual machines are shut down. They decide to create alerts in the Azure Advisor service. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So the Azure Advisor service is used as a recommendation engine and can't be used to record activities for the virtual machines. Question number 34. A company current has a set of Azure virtual machines. They want to ensure that their IT administrative team is alerted if any of the virtual machines are shut down. They decide to create alerts based on activity logs in Azure Monitor. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. So the activity log service is used to record all control plane activities. You can then create alerts based off the activity logs. Question number 35. A company has the following resources deployed to their Azure subscription. The virtual machines TexLab VM is currently in the running state. The company now assigns the below Azure policy. The not allowed resources types are Microsoft.network slash virtual networks, Microsoft slash compute slash virtual machines. Would an administrator be able to modify the address space of TexLab VNet2? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So since there is a policy in place which does not allow any actions on virtual networks, you will not be able to make any changes to the virtual network. Question number 36. The scenario is same and the question it has, Would an administrator be able to move the virtual machines to another resource group named TexLab-staging? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. Since the policy is only applied to the resource group TexLab-RG and not TexLab-staging, you can move the virtual machines to that resource group. Question number 37. A company is planning on using Azure for the various services they offer. They want to ensure that they can bill each department for the resources they consume. They decide to use Azure role based access control to separate the bill department wise. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So this is used to control access to resources and can't be used for billing purposes. Question number 38. A company is planning on using Azure for the various services they offer. They want to ensure that they can bill each department for the resources they consume. They decide to use Azure resource tags to separate the bills department wise. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is true. So you can use resource tags to organize your Azure resources and also apply billing techniques department wise. Question number 39. A company is planning on using Azure for the various services they offer. They want to ensure that they can bill each department for the resources they consume. They decide to use Azure policies to separate the bills department wise. Would this fulfill the requirement? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So Azure policies are used from a governance perspective and can't be used to create bills department wise. Question number 40. A company currently has the following networks defined in Azure. Name and address space is given. Texat lab dash vnet, that is vnet 1. So this is a typo error. So it is vnet 1 and the address space is 10.1.0.0 slash 16. Then we have vnet 2, vnet 3 and the address space is given. All virtual networks are hosting virtual machines with varying workloads. A virtual machines named TextLab-Detect hosted in TextLab-VNet2. The virtual machines will have an intrusion detection software installed on it. All traffic on all virtual networks need to be routed via the virtual machines. You need to complete the required steps for implementing this requirement. Which of the following would you need to create additional to ensure traffic is sent via the virtual machine hosting the intrusion software? And the options are a new route table, B, add an address space, C, add DNS server, and D, add a service endpoint. So the correct answer is a new route table. So in order to ensure that traffic is routed via the intrusion based service, you need to set up a route table and add the route table to the subnets in the other virtual networks. Question number 41. You have an Azure subscription named TechSet Lab Staging. Under the subscription, you go ahead and create a resource group named TechSet Labs-RG. You then go ahead and create an Azure policy based on not allowed resource types definition. Here you define the parameters as Microsoft.network.virtual networks as the not allowed resource types. You assign the policy to the tenant root group. Would you be able to create a virtual machines in the TechSet Labs-RG resource group? And the options are true and false. So the correct answer is false. So since the policy is applied at the tenant root group, it would be applied to all subscription and resource group. And since virtual networks are allowed for the creation of virtual machines, you won't be able to create the virtual machines. Question number 42. A company is planning on using the Azure import or export service to move data out of their Azure storage account. Which of the following service could be used when defining the Azure exports job? And the options are A. Blob storage, B. File storage, C. Queue storage, and D. Table storage. The correct answer is A. Blob storage. So only the Blob service is supported with the export job feature. Question number 43. A company has set up an Azure subscription. They have set up a storage account and are currently using the Blob service. They want to assign permission to three user groups. Group A. This group should have the ability to manage the storage account. Group B. This group should be able to manage containers within the storage account. Group C. This group should be given full access to Azure Storage Blob containers and data, including assigning POSIX access control. You need to assign the relevant role based access control, ensuring the privileges of least access. Which of the following would you assign to Group C? The options are A. Owner, B. Contributor, C. Storage account contributor, D. Storage blob data contributor, and E. Storage blob data owner. So the correct answer is E. So this can be accomplished with the storage blob data contributor, and this is also given in the Microsoft documentation. Option A and B are incorrect since these would provide more permission than required. Option C and D are incorrect since these roles don't have the required permission. Question number 44. The scenario is same, and this is for which of the following would you assign to group A? And for group A, this group should have the ability to manage the storage account. So the correct answer is storage account contributor. So this can be accomplished with the storage account contributor role. Question number 45. Your company currently has a site-to-site connections with an Azure Virtual Private Network. The VPN device that is allocated on the on-premise side is going to undergo a change in its public IP addresses. You have to ensure the site-to-site VPN connection continues to work after the change. Which of the following steps would you need to carry out after the change in the public IP addresses on the on-premises VPN device, ensuring minimum connection downtime? Choose three answers from the options given below. And the options are A. Remove the VPN connection, B. Stop the VPN connection, C. Modify the local gateway IP address, D. Modify the VPN gateway address, E. Recreate the VPN connection, F. Start the VPN connection. So the correct answer is B. Stop the VPN connection, C. Modify the local gateway IP addresses, and F. Start the VPN connection. Question number 46. A team has set up log analytics for a virtual machines named Demo VM. They are running the following query in the log analytics workspace. In which of the below format will the data be displayed? And the options are A. Table that has two columns, B. Table that has three columns, C. Graph that has the computer values on the y-axis, and D. Graph that has the average counter value on the y-axis. So the correct answer is D. Question number 47. A team has set up log analytics for a virtual machine named Demo VM. They are running the following query in the log analytics workspace. If a query is run on Monday, then the query will return events from the last A 1 day, B 7 days, C 18 days, and D 14 days. So the correct answer is 14 days. Congratulations on completing the quiz. You can also try this quiz and many more directly on our website TechCloud Solution. There you will find additional practice tests, exam dumps, and a study guide to help you ace the AZ-104 exam. Thank you for watching and we will see you in the next video. Until then, happy learning.